Welcome to this webinar, and we are exploring today impeccability from the heart. So glad that you could join us. Welcome to those of you that are live and those of you that are listening to this recording later. Living the 4 agreements. So I've been really exploring what the word impeccable means, and impeccability is such a fabulous word. The way that Don Miguel Ruiz defines it in the 4 agreements is that to be impeccable means to be without sin. And we sin anytime we go against ourselves. So when we're impeccable, we're not going against ourselves. We're telling ourselves the truth. And impeccability from the heart means that we're in a state of compassion for ourselves and for all beings. That we recognize that it's very easy to go against ourselves. It's very easy for others to go against themselves. And that we're all moving towards being impeccable. And it's our awareness that creates impeccability. I want to say that again, that's important. It's our awareness that creates impeccability. There's another definition of the word impeccable, and it comes from, I believe, from Greek. And to be impeccable meant, it was an archery term. So it was actually a term that was used in archery that meant to not miss the mark. So when you were impeccable, you hit your target. You knew what your target was, and you hit your target. And so when we, 1, are clear what our target is, then we have the chance of hitting it. And 2, that we know from archery, you would never expect yourself to pick up an arrow and shoot at a target and hit that target 100% of the time, night or day, no matter how you are feeling, that you are always hitting that target. You'd recognize impeccability is about practicing. It's about knowing what your target is and then bringing all of your attention to hit that target. And if you miss the target, it's not then I'm going to go into a big judgment fest against myself. It's simply, I didn't hit my target. Let me learn from my mistake. Let me learn from what I did hit. Let me learn from how I was holding my being, how I was holding my energy, what was I aiming towards. And in that way, we practice being impeccable, and we get better and better at it. So practice, practice, practice. It really helps to take it out of the realm of judgment or of frustration with ourselves when we can hold that being impeccable is about learning to hit our own mark. And that's where we so often get ourselves in trouble, because we're trying to hit other people's marks, or what we believe other people's marks are. So we have the assumption of what somebody else wants us to be or who we think we should be. And then we try and hit that mark. And we're always going to be off target on that. Because the truth is we can never know what somebody really, really wants from us, for us. And that's not our business anyway. It's not our business to hit other people's marks. It's our business to hit our own, to be clear about what our own is. Now, we can use other people to help us to become more impeccable. So, example. Anna, Liz, Susan, and Chris. And if you guys could just take a moment to chat and share where you're calling in from, that would be great. So just take a moment to chat and share where you're calling in from. And the chat is up above. You can see the little tabs and click on chat. So thanks for joining in today. And as always, thank you to all the folks that are also listening to this recording later. So, example. If I'm clear that I want to start let's just use exercise more. That's something that's important for me. And I use my word to say, I want to exercise more. And I have a particular focus that I want to be. So impeccability is one, naming for myself what my mark is, and then doing my best to hit my mark. So that when I say I'm going to do something, I follow through. Now, coming from the heart is different than most of us work with our relationship with impeccability, because what most of us do, our tendency, I should say, is that it's our judge that's trying to hold us up to being impeccable. So we decide what feels impeccable to us, we decide what our mark is, what we're aiming towards, and then if we miss, the judge then comes in and says, oh my God, you screwed up, you never follow through, you're a horrible person, everybody else in the world is exercising but you, whatever it is. And that type of inner dialogue is not helping us to become more impeccable. It only helps us to become more judgmental. So to really hit our mark, we want to bring our heart into the experience. And our heart, our compassion, our witness says, that was a good try. Or, okay, I know you didn't get to it today, but we're going to try again tomorrow. And that voice is a cheerleader for us. It is an enthusiastic, yes, you can do this, let's try again. Okay, so that's the beauty of being impeccable in that way, is that we're clear where we're going, and that when we miss, if we miss, either we just hit our target, we know what our target is, it's very clear, and we hit it, or sometimes we've taken on too much. Impeccability from the heart allows us to then go, okay, why didn't I do it? What were the factors that were involved? And then redesign what our target is. So we might do this, I need to do it first thing in the morning. Whatever it is, adjust, just like we would adjust our aim in archery to hit our mark. So sometimes we change the mark, we bring the mark closer in, we do less so that when we aim and fire, it's right there, it's very easy. And that's a really beautiful way of honoring ourselves, is actually to make the mark that we're hitting very easy to land. Because what happens is that builds our confidence, that builds our excitement. Boom, I did it, yay! And then we can then, when we give ourselves a mark that's possible for us to hit, we then have more energy to continue forward. When we make the mark impossible, we put it way too far out, and we keep missing, we often get frustrated and disillusioned. And that's where it's very easy for the judge to come in. So being impeccable from the heart, impeccability from the heart, is that we listen to where we're at, what's true for this being now, and how can I best set up a situation where I can succeed in what I want to manifest. And that success might start with a little bitty step. And we then celebrate, ah, and then we move our mark out further. Then we do the next little bitty step on our journey. So welcome, we have Liz from Vancouver, Chris from Austin, and Deanna from Placerville, and other folks that haven't shared where they're calling from, so feel free to share. And as I'm talking, this will be about a half-hour broadcast. If you have any questions, any thoughts, any inspirations, feel free to chat and share with us. And for those of you that are watching later, if something arises, if you have a question, please feel free to email livingthe4a@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. I write a blog every 2 weeks for Amber Allen Publishing, which is the publisher of the 4 Agreements. And I'm also starting to do a bi-weekly newsletter for the 4 Agreements, and so I'd be happy to take and answer any questions that arise for you as you're moving in your world to really live the 4 Agreements. So how other people can help us become more impeccable is that sometimes we need more support on our journey. So if we stay with the exercise example, and I realize that I'm not following through on my commitment to myself, that I'm not being impeccable, that I've said I will do this, but I'm not following through. When I come from the heart, I look at what are the reasons and ask, how can I support myself? And sometimes that support comes from other people. So I might recognize I need help, I need support, I need some butt kicking, I need some mentoring. And so I would then call in somebody else to help me stick to my mark, to let them know this is what I want to hit, and here's how you can help me in hitting that mark. So sometimes the person that is holding with you, and they're also helping you to step towards your impeccability from a heart place, they might invite you to stretch, or they might invite you to do less. But having that extra person or people, because sometimes being within a group that's doing the same thing is incredibly helpful. Sometimes having just one other person that's helping to spot you is very powerful. And you want that person to be coming from their heart. It's not helpful to pick someone that's going to judge you if you don't follow through. And they can be stern, they can be clear. There's a difference between clarity and truth from the heart versus judgment. There's a difference between what I call discernment and judgment. Discernment just takes the facts in and mirrors the facts back to you. That's what's the most helpful. That's what helps us become more impeccable with ourselves, that we don't use our word against us. When we call in people around us that are impeccable from the heart and help us discern, oh, you didn't hit the mark, what happened? And help push us in a loving way. When we call people around us that judge us rather than love us when we're not impeccable, then that just feeds our own judgment, strengthens our own inner judgment. And that's a short-term solution, we can say. Because fear, judgment, pushing, comparison, they will get us motivated to take action. They will help us hold to be impeccable. But it's not a wonderful way to be in the world, because it's just fostering more judgment, more fear in our lives and with the people around us. So coming from the heart means that we call people who can help us discern. And sometimes what people will discern is there's a lot more that you can give. Here's your new mark. I'm going to put it here and hit it. And that then enables us to stretch beyond where we thought we could go. So we think, well, I'm only able to hit this. But somebody that knows us and that knows what's possible might put our mark, might say, no, I want you to do this. Do it. Go for it. And that then is a beautiful way to stretch ourselves beyond where we thought we could go. So find those people in your life that can mirror impeccability from the heart, which is a place of discernment and not judging. And then use those people to help cultivate that quality within yourself more and more, to call that in, to celebrate every place, every little place of yes, every little place of success. And the truth is, as we get more impeccable, as we really hold in our being, I'm either going to hit the mark or I'm not, and I will learn from the places I don't hit the mark. That then there's a way we don't have to celebrate so much our hits or our misses. We just simply send an arrow of our intent out. It lands or it doesn't land. And we move to the next thing. Either we try again, we change the mark, we adjust our stance. Impeccability from the heart means that we have incredible persistence, that we have patience, and that we have a sense of humor. Those are three really powerful qualities of a Toltec warrior. And when I say warrior, the warrior energy is that quality of willingness to show up, willingness to move through obstacles, and to increase our energy more and more. So when an obstacle arises, we see it as a worthy opponent. We can say, you are a worthy opponent. Because when we have good opponents in our life, whether that's something that we're trying to overcome, whether it's a person, whether it's something that we're stretching ourselves around, an opponent is what helps us to grow. If you always were interacting in a world in a very, very safe way and only doing what you knew how to do, only doing what was familiar, only making sure every time you stretched or anytime you pulled your bow back, you would hit the target because it's right in front of you. It's very simple. You know that you're going to hit it. If you live that kind of a safe, comfortable life, then there won't be growth. Yes, you'll be able to hit your target, but you'll never go beyond what you know. And so that's why having challenging people in our lives, or people that will lovingly challenge us, is a fabulous thing. So those are two different things. Let's talk about that. One, people that are challenges in our life. They help us become more impeccable and really come from our heart, because challenging people in our life are the people we take personally. They're the people that trigger us, that make our lives difficult, that are frustrating, but they're also huge gifts to us. Anytime you have a challenging person in your life, you can either use them against yourself or you can use them to support your growth, to be clear about what it is your intent is. And that's really the foundation of impeccability from the heart, is that you're clear about what are you doing, what's your intent in all the different relationships you're in all the different projects you're involved in. Where's your focus? What are you aiming towards? So with people that are challenging in your life, you want to be clear. What's your intent? What are you aiming for? And that impeccability from the heart isn't about, I'm aiming to fix them, to change them, to make them different. It's not your role. Your role isn't to change the people around you. That's their role. Your role is to be in relationship with the people around you from a place of conscious choice. So when people are challenging, we can look at, where is it that they're rubbing against me? Where's the edge? Where's the rough spot in me that's getting triggered by this person's actions, behavior, words? Present, more impeccable with myself, which means more clear about my intent and more proactive in working to hit my mark. So again, this isn't about changing the other. And it also doesn't mean that every relationship you stay in. Sometimes some relationships, the challenge is too great and the triggering is too high. So it's best then actually to give ourselves more space. Give ourselves some more room around those folks in our life that are extra challenging. So example, one of my friends right now is in relationship with her mother, who she's always had a very difficult relationship with. And yet it's really important for her to spend time with her mom. And so what she's learned is that 1 hour visits work. Like, she can stay clear, impeccable, present, even though it's difficult. That's her capacity. If she stays 4 hours, she gets triggered, she goes into reaction, they end up having a difficult interaction. Doesn't work. So that's part of her coming into her impeccability. She learned that, and this is how we learn. We learn by missing the mark. She learned that by staying too long and getting into a fight and struggling and recognizing, okay, that doesn't work. How can I what will work. And then from that intent of, what she came up with, her intent is, I want to be present and loving with my mother. With my mom. And so to do that, from listen to, and so what do I need to be able to hit that mark? And that's going to adjust for all of us. But when we have that place of discernment, we can look at any situation and realize the challenges are here to help us grow. And in that helping us to grow, that's about helping us to become more intimate with ourselves and what's true for us now, and name them and put them into practice. So we have that awareness. It always comes back to awareness, intent. Taking action then from the heart. Knowing that sometimes we're going to hit our mark perfectly, and sometimes we're going to completely miss it. And that missing it gives us information, data, resources that we need in order to re-steady our hand and stay true to what we're aiming for. So thanks to Kevin from Vancouver, Susan from Sydney, Australia. Hey, Susan, I'm so glad that and those are our folks so far. So if you have any questions, I'm just going to take a little bit of a pause and open. If there's anybody that has a question that you want to ask about this idea of being impeccable from the heart, I'm going to go ahead and keep going with the teaching, but feel into, is there a question? Feel free to post it on the chat. So challenging people are great gifts in our lives. They help us to become more impeccable, more true to ourselves, and more present within difficult situations. And then there's also people that challenge us in a really good way. So those are the people around us that see that we can do better, that we can stretch, and that support us in doing so. So they see what our best is, and sometimes they see what our best is even more than we see. So sometimes I think my best is here, but if there's somebody else with me and goes, well, try, stretch, I find, oh, my best is actually over here. So those, having challenging people in your life, people that you can be vulnerable with, people that you can be really truthful with, and people that know are intimate with you, that can help you find your stretch. Okay? Or people that are experts in their field. So those are also people that help us become more working to become more impeccable. They can help us to see how far the mark is, how we can stretch, how we can grow. So call those people around you, the people that are challenging in a way that helps stretch you, and also to love and honor the people that are just plain old challenging because they triggered you. Both of these beings, when we use them in an impeccable way, when we use them from our heart, help us to become better people. Now, if you find that you're using someone against yourself, and anytime you're around them, you're going into judgment, you're going into fear, you're in big reaction, again, that's where you want to create more spaciousness. So don't be afraid to make boundaries. That's also part of being impeccable from the heart, is learning to make open-hearted boundaries. Very, very important. We can make boundaries from a closed place, pushing against, or we can make boundaries from a, this is what's true for me, I'm going to hold my boundary, this is the line. When we do that from our heart, then we can stay present with the other person, we can stay more present with ourselves. Impeccability of heart is about falling in love with ourselves more and more, supporting ourselves more and more, being intimate with ourselves so that we get to know who is this being that I am. Any different circumstance, what our focus, what our intent is. And then when we draw back our bow, we bring our energy totally present to shoot up the arrow of our action, of our energy, then from the heart, we either make our target or we miss our target. And we impeccably choose next step. Be willing to make mistakes. Be willing to miss the mark. Be willing to stretch yourself, and also be willing to make it easier, because both are important. Sometimes the biggest gift is to make the next step that you're doing easier on yourself so that it's doable. And sometimes the biggest gift you can give yourself is to stretch and target far out, so you really have to get centered and present in order to hit it. And again, just like with everything, it's the stretching that helps us grow, and it's the making it smaller that helps us to gain traction. So if you feel like you're spinning your wheels, you find that you're in judgment or you're in non-action around something, make it more bite-sized. From your heart, make it more bite-sized. What will serve me here? And from the places where you recognize that you're holding yourself back in some way, be willing to call the people around you that'll help you stretch, that'll help you grow, that'll help you reach deeper into yourself, to find your truth, to find out what you're capable of from your depth. And the truth is, life gives us those situations over and over again. I really see this, is that life invites us to grow. And we use, sorry, the 2-minute alarm. When we use everything as a learning, everything to be curious about, everything as a way to grow and go deeper, then we create magic in our lives. We create a sense of deep support because we're supporting ourselves by knowing what our intent is, what the mark is that we're wanting to hit, and then taking in the data to either make it a smaller step beautiful based on where we're at. That's impeccability. So Kevin wrote, drinking poison is not good for the heart. That is true. So when we recognize that the energies, the people, the words around us that are poisonous, inside or outside, then we can choose not to drink the poison. And so often the poison that we are drinking is our own poison. It's our own judgment that we're gulping down. Because really, there's nobody else outside of you. If you feel like somebody else is judging you, it's you judging yourself. Because if there was someone outside judging you that you didn't receive the judgment, that you didn't feel like that was a true assessment, then you wouldn't drink that poison. So, Susan, when others disapprove of a decision that we made to help ourselves, if they feel we owe them to do it their way, kindness to them makes you feel in conflict with self. What to do then? It's a great question, Susan. And the truth is, we're going to disappoint people in our lives. I really believe if you're living your life, that there's going to be times that people are going to be upset, people are going to be disappointed, because if nobody is ever disappointed around you, the only thing that could mean is that you're living your life for other people. So when we start recognizing what's true for us and that other people might disapprove, it's a practice of really deeply loving ourselves, coming into compassion, and having compassion for the other person. And what I found helps me is to be able to say, they get to be disappointed. That's okay. They can be disappointed. That's their choice. And I continue to show up and be present and state we get to stay steady with ourselves in the face of disappointing somebody else. It's not easy, but it's a practice. And it's about really softening our hearts, not pushing and saying, this is the way it has to be. And also not going, oh, well, I'll change my mind because I don't want to upset you. Where we're truthful with what is true for us. And we know what our intent is. We're clear about that. So then even if somebody else is disappointed or feels like we're not being kind, we can feel inside of ourselves, we are being kind to ourselves, and we are being kind to the other person by sharing what's true for us. That's kindness. They might not appreciate that or perceive that as kindness, but it is kindness. So we keep coming back to, am I hitting my mark? And we can't ascertain if we're hitting our mark by looking at how other people are reacting. Okay, that's hitting their marks. We know if we're hitting our mark by coming back to what's our intent, what is our purpose and focus in any given situation. And it is possible for us to be kind and have boundaries. Whether others can see that or not is not our business. Our business is to keep coming back to being truthful from a place of love. And I know sometimes that's challenging. And that's why it takes practice. To stay steady in our intent and to practice hitting our mark over and over again. So thank you for joining me today. Good, I'm glad that was helpful, Susan. I'm going to be doing another broadcast tonight at 8 p.m. Central. If you want to join for round 2, it'll be very similar to round 1, but slightly different. And keep living the 4 agreements. And I'll be sharing more writings and blogs through the newsletter, which you'll be added to, and I'll be starting that in a week or so. So thanks for being part of this movement of living the 4 agreements. I send you all my love and blessings, and keep being impeccable